Hi, everyone. I'm Lynda Jan, founder of Grief Diaries. And tonight I'm here with Jan Werner, the founder of Grief Speaks Out. And we are having a show just for the bereaved called Hope for the Holidays. Hello, Jan.
Hello, Linda. Hello, everybody.
How are you doing tonight? You're over on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast.
I am. I'm in New York City.
And do you have snow on the ground yet?
We did, but it melted. It's not snowing at the moment.
Okay. Okay. I have never been to New York City during the winter, and it's on my bucket list. It's all the movies, like Home Alone and such, where it just looks so festive and beautiful. And so it's on my bucket list to go there during December. So tonight we're talking about weathering the holidays because facing the holidays without our loved ones is very, very hard. And Jan and I have a lot of commonality in that she lost a husband in 2009. I lost a daughter in 2009. And so we have both weathered 9 years of facing the holidays without our loved one. So, Jan, take us back to when you lost your husband. I know it's painful to talk about, but it's, to lay the foundation of our stories for the viewers, gives them an idea of what we've been through and how far we've come. So take us back to 2009. Your husband passed in July. What do you remember from that first holiday season?
Well, my husband was a big personality. I always said when he died, it was like you're walking on the ocean and the tide goes out and it doesn't come back in again. It was impossible to me that he was in a box of ashes. He had been misdiagnosed, and I tricked him into going to the hospital, and he died 6 weeks later. That
Wow.
first year, I pretty much was in chaos all the time. And my choice for the holiday season that year was to isolate, was just to stay in bed and not deal with other people. Um, One of the things that my daughter did one year was she sang "Unhappy Holidays" to you. And that made me laugh because she was giving me permission to be in a group of people and not be happy.
Mm.
Um, so his death was, he was older than I was. I thought that I would miss him a lot and that I would be sad. I didn't know that I'd feel totally broken and annihilated. And I was too busy trying to get help and trying to breathe and trying to stay alive to celebrate anything.
That's a beautiful way to say it. Many people who've not been through loss, they think that I can't say it any better than you just did. They think that you're going to be sad, you're going to miss your loved one, but the truth is that brokenness is so complete. There's no words in the human language to describe it. They can't possibly teach this kind of heartache in any college course. It shatters every fiber of your being. And so, did you celebrate the holidays at all?
Not the first year. The first year, I did do things. We had a wonderful celebration of my husband's life. If you pack one box a day, you can pack up your whole house. I moved from California to New York City. So it
Wow.
wasn't like I didn't do anything. I always had what I called a chore of the day. It could be going out for 5 minutes, it could be taking a shower, but I wanted to do one thing every day where I could go, okay, I did something. But I spent an awful lot of time that first year when I wasn't going to therapy or bereavement groups. And then because everything was just too sad, I took comedy, sketch writing. Um, but I spent an awful lot of time just laying in bed watching DVDs over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm about to ramble a bit, but I was going to say one of the things I did was, and it's almost a tip, is I saw a plaque that said, "Have an adequate day." And I thought I could do that. I can't have a good day right now, but I can have an adequate day. So it was a couple of years before I decided that I wanted my husband's life to matter more than his death, that I was just totally in a place where all I thought about was dead husband, and that was so unfair. He was so full of life that I really wanted to honor his life and our life together, and that was a big changing point for me.
I think that's it with the holidays, is that when we lose a loved one, our world is robbed. At least it feels like it's been robbed of all beauty, all joy. And a lot of people wonder, why do the holidays create such a stronger emotional reaction for the bereaved? What is it about the holidays that do that? And for me, it is because that every family picture from then on out will not include your loved one. And that's a really hard, painful realization. Things like the stocking. What do you do with the stocking? And what we did with our daughters was, first off, I couldn't bear not to have her stocking up there. And so what I did was I decided, and I also could not have it empty. We had a 2-year-old grandson, and I knew that would raise questions in his mind, like, why didn't Auntie Allie get anything? And so what we did was put cat toys and dog treats in her stocking. She loved our cat. She loved our dogs. And to me, it served a purpose. It gave, me a something to put in there. And of course, it made our pets happy. And I continue to do that to this day. But dealing with the holidays, there's also things like the empty chair at the table. It's, what do you do with that? And so there's many elements of the holidays that heighten our emotional sadness compared to other times of the year. And so, dealing with the holidays requires a little extra coping skills. And that's what we're talking about tonight. So, Jan, what did you do then did you start celebrating the second year or third year? When did you start thinking that maybe you're going to add little bits of joy and cheer to your holiday season?
I would probably say it was more around the third year where I felt that I could be around family. A lot of it depends on what kind of family and friends that you have, because I know something that's happened to me and to other people is that people I thought that would be in my life forever were unable to deal with my grief and they disappeared. So it was also a question of who could I trust. My daughter was very supportive. One of the things that we do is put pictures of people we love who've died and pets that have died and put little tea candles in front of them.
Oh, yeah.
I now have a granddaughter. She was born 2 years after my husband died. And we talk about Grandpa Artie all the time. And we have a dead family and a living family, and they both love us. So that's something that helped me to celebrate, was to have him with me in spirit, even though he can't be with me physically.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not the same, it's that's what I try and let people know, is that the trauma didn't happen in 2009. It happens every morning when I wake up and go, he's still dead.
Yeah.
What am I going to do today?
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad that you had a granddaughter, because we have a grandson, and having that little child around for the holiday season, it helps us to remember the magic of Christmas. And at first, that feels really raw, right? At least it did to me. But at the same time, I knew that I didn't want to rob him of that magic. And so it gave me something to work on. But I want to ask you, as a widow, and you had your first grandchild after your husband passed, what was that like for you?
When my daughter is not my husband's child. She's a stepchild. I was a single parent before everybody was a single parent. When my daughter was pregnant, I wasn't sure if I had the capacity to love anymore. And then my granddaughter was born, and I adore her. And like you said, I feel like she deserves for me to be totally present. So one of the things that I've done for the holidays, for Hanukkah and for Christmas, is to make it about her. It used to be about my husband and I and my daughter, and now it's about my granddaughter. So he's not replaced, and I miss him, and he would love her. And I've told her that I'm sure that wherever he is, he adores her and she would adore him. So that space isn't going to be filled. But I don't know. She's going to be 7 this year, and she's just, she's the light of my life. She wants me to live to be 100, so I have to stick around and try and do a good job. I call it decorating the waiting room. I'll be with my husband hopefully eventually, but I might as well make the waiting room really, really special.
Oh, beautifully said. Beautifully said. There's something magical about grandchildren. Mm-hmm. So, every Christmas my kids ask me, Mom, what do you want for Christmas? I say, more grandchildren. Please fill my home with grandchildren. So what do you do now that honors his memory over the holidays?
Over the holidays, I honor him every day, but over the holidays, I talk about him and I share him. A lot of my friends never met him, but they feel like they know him. And it could be something concrete, like lighting a candle or doing something like that. But mostly it's just people that know me know that we're going to talk about him. He's really present for me. There aren't new memories, but I know a lot of what he would think or say, and I'm going to keep on having him be part of my life.
I love that.
I was just going to say, it's kind of feisty for me too, because part of it is, I remember him, and you know what? You're going to remember him too, whether you ever met him or not.
People often say that grief is not something you get over, you get through it. And, I think of it as we learn to move forward with them with us, mm-hmm. and in our hearts. It's not like you get through it and then they're in your rearview mirror. Right. You learn to move forward with them, with you. And, whether that's right or wrong for anyone else, that's what is right for me, and it brings me comfort. So I love what you're saying, because that resonates in my heart, that you honor him every day.
Yeah, that he's still guiding me. Whether he's dust and it's because of what he taught me when he was alive, or whether he's actually still physically with me, because people have all kinds of belief systems. I think he'd like to think that he's not with me. He's in front of me showing me the way. But I also would like to share that there's a couple of things. Sometimes it gets really painful. And there's 2 things that I learned how to do that I find really helpful. One is just like I was somewhere during the holidays, and a husband took his wife's sweater and put it around her shoulders. And it was just such a loving gesture. It was really painful. So I looked down and I said, boy, that really hurts. And then I looked around me and looked at every detail I possibly could. So for me, it's acknowledging the pain, but then also pulling myself back into the present by trying to sharpen my awareness. And then if it gets too much, the other thing is, and I hope your listeners don't mind me saying this, or my listeners, but everybody goes to the bathroom. So I can just say, excuse me, and people think I'm just going to the bathroom, and I can go into the bathroom and close the door and have a little cry or think for a minute or a quiet moment, and then put some cold water on my face and go back out again. I can build in little escape hatches for myself if I need them.
Yeah, well said. I think being able to escape like that, especially when we're triggered, a bathroom is you're right, everyone goes to the bathroom. So that's a great place to go have a moment where you gather your thoughts, shed a few tears if you need to, and get yourself nice and grounded, and, take a big deep breath. So thank you. I see we have a comment here. No comments. They're just reactions. So If viewers, if you have a thought, a question for Jan or myself, or you want to share how you cope with the holidays, please feel free to put it in the thread, and we will read some of them out loud. And we just want you to be part of this, and together we can lean on each other. So the first tip that I have, and you talked about this a little bit, Jan, is the very first tip is for me, that brought me comfort early on, was to maintain a routine. Now, you said you isolated yourself, and I think that it's really important for people to understand that it's okay to isolate ourselves. And the reason I say that is a lot of people think, oh, that's not good, that's a red flag. But the truth is, what do wounded animals do in the wild? They go into their den and isolate themselves and lick their wound in private. Humans are not all that different, right? And so I have those days as well, not nearly as many as I did, but shut the door, don't answer the phone, and to isolate myself. It brought me comfort. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of people are afraid of that. They think that there's something dangerous or not okay with isolating yourself, but that is how we heal. So, maintain a routine, because to me, that offers reassurance that not everything in the world has changed. But if you feel that it's more comforting to your heart to isolate, then by all means, do what feels best to your heart, because you know what feels best to you. We all know that loss is not the same for everyone. We can share experience the same loss, but it's as unique as a fingerprint. And so our reactions and our filters and our experiences are going to dictate how we move forward, how we process our loss and find ways to heal. And so do whatever is most comfortable to you and apologize to no one. Some people want to go away for the holidays, and that's okay. Take a cruise, fly to a different part of the world. Whatever it is that you need to do is okay. That's the thing. It's okay for you. And if someone else says, oh, you shouldn't do that, and well, they're not you. So, I think it's really important to honor what feels best. And so I love that you brought up, Jan, that you isolated yourself and you just really didn't celebrate those first couple of years, because a lot of people do that, but they aren't brave enough to talk about it because they think other people are going to think that they're weird or not coping or what have you. But really, we do what we need to do to get through each day, and that includes the holidays. So
yeah, I think it's really important for people to know. That's why grief support pages, whether on Facebook or other places, doesn't have to be mine, are good, because you realize this is grieving. People want grieving to be some kind of disorder. It's not. You're not crazy. No. You're not. People ask me sometimes if something they're doing is normal, which makes me laugh, because they're asking me. But I've stopped using the word normal. Does it serve the kind of life I want to live? And I can only do as much as I can do. So if I'm not doing well, can I change it? Do I need help? I just decided to go back for therapy again. I haven't been in a few years, and I'm feeling a little more off balance than I care to be. So I can get a little help, but that's not because I'm bad or I'm doing it wrong. It's just because I'm under a lot of stress. So if what you did today is keep breathing, that's a lot.
That's right.
I'm going on a bit here, but there's a section. I have a book called Grief Day by Day, and
can you hold it up? Do you have one in front of you to show viewers?
Does that work?
Because it just came out, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. But there's a section on self-care, and I talk about moving, and I say, if you want to go for a run, go for a run. But if moving means moving your finger up and down, do that. That's where you start. And
that's right.
Get patient on New Year's Eve is coming up. I don't make resolutions. I do a gratitude list and a forgiveness. The gratitude list is what can I'm always grateful for indoor plumbing, even if I'm in a really bad mood. Um, so I like to make the list longer than that, but you have to start somewhere. And
That's right.
what do I need to forgive myself for that I thought I was going to accomplish and I didn't? And maybe I'll do better next year. But yeah, it's just be where you are and look at yourself through the eyes of somebody who loves you. If you're the person that died loved you, you can close your eyes and remember what it was like when your mom looked at you or your husband or your child. Just because they're dead doesn't mean you can't look into their eyes. You have the memory of that love. And to me, I have to sometimes not look at how I see myself, but how the people that love me see me.
Beautifully said. You know, the gratitude is really, really important. And I know that it feels counterintuitive when you're grieving, but the truth is a grateful heart is a happy heart. And if you can find little tidbits to be grateful for, you'd be surprised at what that does for the endorphins in your brain and the spirit of your heart. And so for those who don't know what a gratitude jar is, you create a jar. It can be a paper cup. It can be a vase. It can be whatever you want it to be. Go to the dollar store and buy a glass bowl. And every day, write down one thing on a piece of paper that you're grateful for. And, you know, and then put it into the jar. And it's really cool to look back when you have a heavy heart to open those pieces of paper and think, oh, yeah, I am grateful for that. You know, there's a lot to be grateful for. And, you know, it's going to be different for everyone, but practicing a heart full of gratitude is a really powerful healing modality. So I'm glad that you said that, Jan, because that is a really big one. And I know that, you know, sometimes people think it's a cliche, but the truth is it really works. It's I can't, you know, emphasize how much that it's going to change your life when you're able to focus on what you do have. So thank you. That's a great one.
This is even a bigger one. And I wouldn't have been able to absorb it at the beginning. It was about 4 years after my husband died. And I went to theater and somebody was telling a story about a man who at his wife's funeral was crying. And everybody thought he was crying because his wife died. But he was crying because he didn't care that she died. And he thought that he deserved a person that he could grieve for and that she deserved to be grieved for. And that was when I got that first idea that the fact that I have been loved and love and still love, I can have gratitude for grief. That's like a huge one. And
yeah, to feel loved.
In the beginning, I would have said something not very nice, but I'm very lucky that I have somebody to grieve for.
Yeah, I think that is really important to acknowledge. So, you know, because again, with grief, we focus so much on the loss, but if we can turn that around and acknowledge how much our loved one brought to our life, it's, you know, that gratitude jar in your heart just fills right up. So that's a good one. I want to see, we've got, Chuck Andrews. Hello, Chuck. He is in New York as well. And he said, I isolated for Thanksgiving and I needed to do that and didn't care what anyone said. It was a problem for some people, I know, but I did it for me. And, you know, Chuck, thanks for bringing that up because it's important that you do it for you because people don't walk in your shoes. Your relationship with your wife, Gloria, was something that was unique to you and her. And you're going to do what feels best to your heart. So good for you. And by the way, big hugs to you. For viewers, Chuck Andrews is a really cool guy in New York who lost his wife, Gloria, and he works at a university and now he educates people about suicide because he felt suicidal after losing his wife. And so, Jan, did you ever feel in that dark place after losing your husband?
Yeah, no, I spent about a month expecting him to come get me. I was actually quite angry with him. I had this
Mm.
weird image of him coming down with angel wings, but I lived on the second floor of an apartment building. So then I was picturing him going through all these people's apartments. And then I thought, well, if he's not going to get me, I'm a good wife. Whither thou goest, I shall go. So I need to kill myself to be with him. But I couldn't do it because I know how much suicide hurts the people that are left living. And I couldn't do it not only to my daughter and my friends and family, I couldn't do it to the person that would find my body. But I researched suicide quite seriously. I think it's really important to talk about suicide
I
because
do as well.
a lot of people consider it. And my hope is that people will find things to do. I've had so many experiences in the past 9 years that I never would have imagined. You can't see around corners. So I'm really glad that I didn't make that choice. But I think it's really important to talk about.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about it tonight because suicide is one of those things that is so taboo to talk about, as if grief itself is not enough taboo to talk about. Suicide is doubly so. And yet, after losing a loved one, it's not uncommon for us survivors to feel like the pain is too overwhelming. And suicide happens when the pain exceeds your coping skills. And in the aftermath of losing a loved one, I know at least for me, I wasn't sure I could survive such a pain. I really felt like I was walking through the belly of hell, and I didn't want to survive. I would have been happy if I didn't wake up the next morning. And I felt that way over and over and over again. And people would say, but you've got other children, you've got a husband. And my analogy for helping them to understand the pain is that if someone suddenly amputated one of your arms without anesthetic, you're not sitting there thinking, well, gee, I've got another arm. I'm grateful I've got another arm. You're in agony and you want to do anything to get that pain to stop, right? And so with losing a loved one, the pain is 100-fold worse than amputation. And you just want that pain to stop. It's overwhelming. And so I love what you said about not being able to see around the corner, because you're right. Both of us are 9 years in, and the world is full of joy and beauty again. But in those early days, you can't fathom that that's possible. And yet we're here to tell viewers that it is. If it can happen to us, it can happen to anyone. And talking about suicide is very important because it does happen where someone who is grieving loss of a loved one feel like they can't go on and they take their own life. And the truth is that, over time, our coping skills do get stronger. And if we're proactive, we can introduce joy back into our world, because the heart can hold joy at the same time as sorrow. And it's really important to have that understanding that you never stop, missing your loved one. You never stop thinking about them, but the heart can hold joy at the same time. And it's okay to put joy into your heart. And the holidays, that's actually one of my tips, is to look for moments of joy that you can put in your memory bank in your heart. And it doesn't mean that you've forgotten your loved one. It doesn't mean that you stop missing them. It just means that the heart can hold both at the same time. You don't have to choose. Give yourself permission to laugh at the silly, funny holiday movies. If you catch yourself singing along to the elevator music of, we wish you a Merry Christmas, don't stop. Don't feel guilty. Give yourself permission to experience joy. And celebrate it. So I think that that's really, really important.
I agree with you. There's always that room for possibility. And the truth is that you may have already experienced joy and you just weren't able to notice it, because that's part of it. I had lunch with somebody that I had just met who told me she was sad all the time. And she was really very funny and laughed a lot. And at the end of the lunch, I said, you said you're sad all the time, but you just kept saying all these funny things. And she said, no, I'm sad all the time. So this is who I am, but I'm also this. That's to me is holding it all. Is I'm always sad. I always have a layer of sadness, but I also could have like a layer cake, layer of joy. And I did want to just say one more thing, that something that helps me is that even after 9 years, it seems like forever, but I know in terms of eternity, it's a blink of an eye. So whenever it's my time to die and be with my husband, it's going to be a short time, even though it seems like a long time today.
Yep, well said. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And you know, we do wear a blanket of sadness, but that is not all of us. That's a facet of us. And that goes again back to the heart. There's more in our heart. There's room for more. It's almost like, you know, with having children, we have 4 children. You know, one's in heaven, yes, but we have 4 children. And you love each of them differently. You don't love them more or less, but you love them differently. And so if I had 10 children, I would still love all of them because our heart has that capability. And so there are different facets to us as human beings. And so, yes, we always have a layer of sadness. That is just part of who we are, but it's not all of who we are. There are other elements of us that are worthwhile and valued. And I think that that's really important to acknowledge those other sides, you know, that we have. I'm not just a bereaved mother. You know, I'm a good cook. I'm a good gardener.
What else?
I'm a, you know, compassionate soul. You know, there's so many things that we can celebrate about ourselves. You know, in addition to being a bereaved mom. Once a bereaved mom, always a bereaved mom. And same for you. You're a widow. You don't get to undo that.
Yeah, I want to honor how difficult it is to have a child die. It's just so I just want to honor.
Thank you. But I appreciate that.
Every day.
And I think, you know, losing a spouse is equal. A lot of people say that, you know, bereaved parents are the worst of the lot. But the truth is, you know, after having done Grief Diaries, it really broadened my understanding. We've got over 700 writers in 11 countries and over 30 books. So that opened my eyes to all the different lost languages that people live with, in addition to being a bereaved parent. And in my understanding now of working with widows and widowers is that loss is right there with being a bereaved parent. So I want to honor your loss as well. It's and you know, in addition to losing a spouse, you lose so much more. And I think that that's one of the things that society does not acknowledge. You lose an income, you lose your handyman, you lose your mechanic, you lose the person who might have paid your bills, taken the garbage out or done all those things. And so there's a lot of dynamics that widows and widowers face in the aftermath that other losses don't. So
I don't like comparing grief because each grief
that's right.
Nice. But just forgot what I was going to say, but that's okay.
Never happens to me.
It's that thing that nobody is replaceable. I used to think that if you had somebody die and your spouse was still alive, that somehow that would make you feel better. Or that if your husband died, that having a child would make you, but it's nobody replaces the person who died. Sometimes something happens and I go down the list of all the people I could call and I don't call anybody because I want to share it with, I wrote a book, all the stuff I'm doing about grief, I want to share with my husband, but I wouldn't have done it if he hadn't died. That's the irony of it all. So yeah, it's just pets, miscarriages. Sometimes we try and make something not important. When somebody dies or an animal dies, it hurts.
It's devastating. It's devastating. So yeah, absolutely. It leaves a hole in our heart that can't be filled by anything else or anyone else. So I want to share a few more tips on coping with the holidays because December 1st is, a couple of days away. And for many, it's the most painful time of the year. And so I do offer every year 10 tips. And Jen has some of her own. And that's why we're doing this tonight, because we want to share them with you, our viewers, in hopes that they will help you weather the holidays. So we've already talked about a couple of them. One of the things that I want to bring up that's very important is that people who have not lost a loved one, they have the best of intentions. But over the holiday season, they see how sad we are. They see that extra layer of sadness because it's the holiday season, and they want to pack our schedule full. They want to distract us by keeping us busy. And grieving is exhausting. It is physically and mentally and emotionally exhausting. And so you want to really give yourself plenty of breathing room, because that will help to minimize the rawness of your nerves. And so as much as you want to make your loved ones happy, who are trying to make you happy by keeping you distracted, you're going to do a better service to yourself if you minimize that and use as much energy as you have and no more. And again, apologize to no one. So, there's no shortage of shopping and school events and, holiday parties. And you're probably, likely to get a lot of invitations from people who are trying to, help you. And as much as we want to enjoy all that stuff, it can be exhausting. And what do we do? You think of a child, what happens when you're exhausted? Your emotional threshold goes way down. So, protect your time from other people because they're not you.
I even do that thing about writing it in the calendar. If I know I'm going to be really busy on December 6th for whatever, there happens to actually be a Hanukkah party that day. On December 7th, I will make time to collapse if I need to. And if somebody calls and says, do you want to have breakfast? I'll say, no, I'm sorry, I'm busy. Because sometimes if you don't schedule it in, you just get to a point where you've lost every day. And it's what
Excellent.
goes. What you say is that I'm more blunt than your average person, but I will say, please don't try and help me. You can't I'm grimacing again because I don't want to offend anybody, but I used to just say to people, can you resurrect dead people? If you can't bring my husband back alive, you can't really help me. But I appreciate all the things that you're trying to do, but help me the way I want to be helped. Don't help me the way you think I want to be helped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't have to do that because that's like a very blunt way, and sometimes there's blowback from that. So I also understand why people don't want to talk about how they really feel.
Well, I think that's a really good strategy. If you have a commitment and an obligation, to go to the ballet, the Nutcracker on December 6th, schedule December 7th free and clear for yourself. A little bit of self-respite, TLC. And, but again, people want to try to distract us. They want to keep us busy, so we're not thinking about it. Well, the truth is we're always going to be thinking about it. And so, protect your time. Don't, give in to that thinking I'm going to just, do something every day, because it's going to exhaust you. And then we're cranky when we're exhausted. So one of my favorite tips for the bereaved, especially those first few years, is that, cut yourself some slack. And what I mean by that is grieving is naturally distracting. And the ER is not a great place to dine on New Year's or Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Christmas Day. And so if your family expects you to make your legendary dinner rolls, cheat elsewhere. Buy store-bought gravy. When we try to do it all, it's, and again, that grieving, it takes up brain bandwidth, which means that we're distracted, and that's when accidents happen. So cut yourself some slack, buy store-bought. So, a lot of delis have really great tasting mashed potatoes. And oftentimes, if you put it into a pretty dish, no one will be the wiser. So
I live in New York City. Everybody knows I don't cook. So I used to live in a building where they sent you a notice saying, if you haven't used your oven all year, you might want to check it out if you're planning to cook for the holidays. So.
No kidding. Oh my gosh.
Only in New York City would that happen. Yeah, there are lots of there are New Yorkers that cook, but there are also lots of New Yorkers that like always get takeout. So
Ah, yeah. Well, for me, I am the one in the family that hosts Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. And, I learned the hard way that very early on just how distracting grief is. It's a safety issue. It really is. And it's not one that we often talk about. So that's why I include it in one of the holiday tips is to go easy on yourself. Maybe you shouldn't be the one using that electric carving knife. Just saying. So here's another one that I love. What's that?
I apologize for over talking.
No, go ahead.
I just was curious if you hosted Thanksgiving and Christmas right after your daughter died, or if you had to take a break from it.
I did host, and I did it because we have other children. And in my mind, I wanted to keep the routine because I wanted them to feel normalcy because nothing else felt normal. And so to me, by keeping a routine, I felt like that was going to keep us all as grounded as possible. Really, the truth is that we are not grounded for a few years. Right. But instinctively, I thought that was what was best for my family, and it was. But I had help in the kitchen. And, my family, I'm blessed with a really large family. And for the holidays, that means a lot of cooking, which is great. But I have wonderful sisters who, everyone brings stuff. And they could see that I was not in a place that I was trying, but it was not a safe place. And so they really became my wingmen, and I'm eternally grateful. And now I am in a place where I host it all, and it brings me great joy to do that. I still use family recipes that I've grown up on. My mom's recipes are tried and true. So, and we look forward to them. We, use them only twice a year. I don't know why, but twice a year. And so we really look forward to them. So yeah, I did do the full meal deal for both Thanksgiving and Christmas that first year and every year after, because I wanted our kids to just feel normal. And, look, in hindsight, I was fooling myself in terms of, feeling normal. But that sense of familiarity was very comforting. So,
well, it's good because here we are. I mean, we're living proof of what we said, that however you deal with it is the way that you're supposed to be. I dealt with it by isolating. You dealt with it by keeping the routine. And 9 years later, we're still finding ways to cope and be grateful and happy and sad and everything all mixed up. And
yeah, and I think that it's important to bring up that what brought you comfort back then may not bring you comfort now. And what brings you comfort now may have only irritated you back then. And that's where honoring what feels right to you in that moment. It doesn't mean you have to do it the rest of your life. It just means doing it right then. And, it's unique to everyone. So I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, well, this has to be my new tradition. No, you don't have to have any tradition. Do what feels best that moment.
Right.
That's it. So one of the things that I like to share with people is treating your senses to what I call the rule of 5. And what that means is, your emotions are raw. And so treating your body, your 5 senses to TLC is an excellent way to help your body remember that not all pleasure is lost. So while our heart is hurting, we can still wear a really soft scarf and it will feel good. And so treat your body to, things that feel good, your 5 tactile senses. And so the rule of 5 is each day, acknowledge 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And so like wearing a soft scarf, okay, you can feel that. That feels good. Treating yourself to an eggnog latte. That's taste, right? And that tastes good. Even when your heart is so heavy, you think it's going to burst, that eggnog latte still tastes good. At least it does to me. Whatever it is that tastes good to you. For smell, aromatherapy, a scented candle, a soap that you wouldn't otherwise indulge in. Buy yourself a $5 bar of soap just for that time. But you get the idea, and the small gestures are reminders that not all pleasure is lost. And I think that that's really important. What do you think about that, Jan?
No, I think self-care is the most important thing. For me, it's been learning how to do it in a way that's helpful instead of hurtful. So, for example, my bed is very comfortable. It's got extra soft sheets and blankets because I'm not snuggling with my husband anymore. I still sleep with the teddy bear that he gave me. It's pretty ragged at this point. And even going on Facebook or in a book or just looking around the room and saying, oh, look, there's something really beautiful, or that smells really good, as opposed to, I mean, I'm 67 years old. I've been doing this my entire life. But when I went for my first therapy session, again, I realized that a lot of times I will eat too much or sleep too much. And that's just knowing myself. It's not holding the part of me that's hurting and trying to make her feel better. It's trying to shut her down. And that's something that I'm still working on. So thank you for your tips. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it's really good to talk about that self-harm. Again, it's all about that overwhelming pain, and we're looking for any way to mitigate that pain, to stop the pain, even to soften that pain. And, it's like pouring salt on a wound times 100. And so doing things like overeating, which that was me. Drinking too much, turning to, illegal drugs even, or abusing prescription drugs. I mean, people, they tend to have a taboo and that's not a good thing and such. But the truth is that you have to understand and have compassion for the root of it. And it means that we're in pain. And so we often seek those ways to try to soften that pain. But if you can turn that into TLC instead of using pain, you're going to find that the TLC is far more powerful in soothing the wound than any self-harm. So, one of the tips also that goes along with that self-TLC is skip the chaos. Turn off the electronics, light a scented candle, wrap yourself in a fuzzy blanket, and put on your favorite sitcom, binge watch I Love Lucy, Lost in New York, or whatever brings comfort to your heart. And it doesn't have to be a comedy. It can be something that makes you cry. That tears are healing. And so skip the chaos. Take time to create peaceful surroundings and take care of yourself. And do what feels best to you. But, there's just something very comforting about binge watching a good show.
Yes. And in the beginning, for me anyway, there was some exploring that I needed to do because sometimes grievers lose interest. Like I used to read all the time, but my husband was reading at the same time I was, and we were sharing. So I stopped reading for a long time. I've met artists that stopped painting. So if there's something that you love that you don't want to do anymore, that's normal. But even in the beginning, when I was isolating, there was a group in New York called Culture Circle, where people got together once a month and they sang, they read poetry, they brought a painting, they made pottery, any kind of art, and you weren't allowed to criticize. You could only give positive feedback. So
love that.
The goal was really filled. And at the first anniversary of my husband's death, somebody had made these beautiful pottery mugs, and I asked if we could toast him. So that's the kind of thing, is go out and search for what this.
Nope.
Are we okay?
We lost Jen. There you are.
Oh, there you are. Okay, so so I'm back. But
You're back.
that was rebuilding. I knew I loved theater, and I slept through, I'd say, 5 or 10 plays. I slept through Hugh Jackman and Daniel Craig. I would have liked to have not slept through Hugh Jackman and Daniel Craig. And then I saw Carrie Fisher and Wishful Drinking, and I stayed and I laughed, and I went, okay, I could still laugh. So show up, even if it's not working. Keep looking. Don't stop looking for what's going to be the thing that you're going to be interested in now.
Yeah, I think that exploring is a wonderful healing modality in itself. And, go out and take a pottery class, take an acting class, take a photography class, go, do something in the community. Self-enrichment is actually really powerful as a healing modality. And you might discover things about yourself that you never knew. And suddenly you've got this new passion that gets you out of bed every day. And that's important. So I love, though, the fact that your group, Jan, they couldn't criticize, no matter how, I hate to say how bad it was, because nothing is ever bad, but how it.
If I say, yeah, you don't want to be in the room.
Well, I think it's important because there's beauty in everything. Not every day is beautiful, but there's beauty in every day, and same with what we create. So I love that group. That's fantastic.
It was.
So.
People have come out of it. I mean, this was 8 years ago. I wrote a book. Somebody else made a movie. Just being in that supportive environment was really helpful to people to continue creating things.
Yeah. So we're running out of time here, and I just want to say that congratulations again on your book. And do you want to tell us about the book? How did it come about? How was it writing the book? And how does it feel now that the book is published?
Well, I need to go back a bit. My husband was a recovering alcoholic, and he made himself available to other addicts and alcoholics 24/7. So when I heard over the fact that I thought he was going to get me, or I was going to go to him, I had this life that I didn't want. And I thought, well, how am I going to feel like I have some meaning? And I thought, what I'll do is I'll make myself available to grieving people the way he made himself available to addicts and alcoholics. That's how I can honor him. So I started writing a blog, and I thought, if I reach one person, that'll be enough. And then somebody said, start a Facebook page. And I did. And Grief Speaks Out now has 2.4 million likes from all over the world.
Amazing.
It's just astonishing to me, because I can't really take it in. And grief is a common language. It doesn't matter what culture you're from. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter if you're an atheist. If you've had somebody die, everybody speaks the same language.
Yeah. So it transcends all differences.
Yeah. So because of that, I opened my email one day, and there was an email from a publisher asking me to write a book on grief. And I just stared at it, and I went, they're handing this to you on a plate. You can't pass this up. So they gave me an outline, and I just, when you talk about carving out time for yourself, I had days when I said, I can't talk to you. I can't talk to anybody. I just have to write. So it was good to have those fast deadlines so that I could do it. And then when I finished it, I thought, what if is it going to be good? And I've been very humbled by the reception. People have called it everything from a soothing balm for a wound to an outstretched hand in friendship. I seem to have an ability to articulate what people are feeling and don't quite know how to say. But it's amazing to me, and as I said, humbling, that in a situation that is really, in a lot of ways, unbearable, that I have somehow the ability to bring some small measure of comfort to people. It's quite, so I'm doing a lot of things to try and get people to pay attention to it, so that, and I have what I call angels, where I give books to people and they give them to libraries or grief counseling centers. I have a friend that lives in Pittsburgh, and she brought 20 books to the Tree of Life Synagogue. And it's just, I don't know how this all happened, but it's that thing we talked about. You know, had I killed myself, I wouldn't. My granddaughter looked at me and she went, "Gammy, you're an author." So it's very special to me. But the special thing is that people are finding it helpful, and I'm very grateful.
Well, thank you for all that you do to serve hurting hearts everywhere. And, you know, congratulations on the book. That's a huge undertaking and a huge accomplishment. And it's so, you know, your granddaughter, you're an author, you know, in your granddaughter's eyes, you're a rock star. And that is so cool. You know, celebrate that, because you are a rock star. You speak for the average person. And, you know, grief does transcend all differences. And so by putting it out there, you touch hearts around the world, and you heal hearts around the world, because she who heals others heals herself. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining me tonight. You know, the holidays are a tough time. Jan, where can people find you if they have a question, if they want to start following you? Where should they go?
My blog, I don't write for it anymore. It's at www.griefspeaksout.net. If you don't put the www in, you don't get it. My Facebook page is where there's 7 posts a day, questions, pictures, quotes, honest. You have to share your own experience, and that's www.facebook.com/griefspeaksout. And if you hunt around, you can find my, like if you message me, I'll give you my email. So I don't answer messages every day, but I do answer messages. So Facebook's the best place.
Well, thank you for all that you do. And thank you for joining me tonight and sharing your own wisdom with our viewers, and wishing you a warm and gentle holiday season.
Thank you. The same to you. Thank you for waiting.
All right, everyone. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye, Jan.
Bye.